Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Valeria, Vice Chair Dumay, and respected members of the Judiciary Committee. I'm here to present my bill HB0812, which deals with grandparents' visitation. This bill alters the circumstances under which an equity court may grant visitation rights to a grandparent by authorizing the court to do so if each of the child's living parents consent to the visitation. Or if one or both parents object to the visitation, the court is authorized to grant the visitation if the court finds that exceptional circumstances exist that show current or future detriment to the child if visitation with the grandparents is not allowed. Visitation rights would not interfere with the parent-child relationship, and or visitation rights would be in the best interest of the child. I request a favorable report for this bill. I have several people who signed up to testify, so if you have any questions for me, please, you can ask me, or I would let other people testify and go back to my committee hearing.
Lisi. Okay.
Thank you very much. You're going to leave. Don't go?
He's going back to his committee.
I have a voting session, but I can stay here if you want me to.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. You will testify. Huh?
All right. Who'd like to go first? All right. Who'd like to start?
Okay, I've never done this before. My name is Sheila, and I'm from Montgomery County. I support the HB12 bill, the grandparents' bill, in hopes that it will improve the relationship with my grandson. I don't know if I can do this.
Okay.
The new exceptional circumstances. The new exceptional circumstances. I don't know if I can do this. The new exceptional circumstances. The new exceptional circumstances.
On to someone else and come back?
Grandparents aren't just grandparents.
Okay.
They're ancestors, they're mentors, teachers, students, and heroes. The longest I've ever been away from my grandchildren is 2 weeks. And my oldest grandson, he didn't talk till he was 3. And I learned sign language with him. And we learned his ABCs in the sand on the beach. And when his little brother was born here in Annapolis, he was 2 pounds. And I stayed with him. And helped them at home for those weeks while he was being born, and he came home. And the boys were, they were sick a lot with respiratory problems, and I stayed there to help, and I lived there for a long time. And the boys were, and I took them, I watched them while the mom did her associate's degree, and the father worked. And I lived 2 hours away in Gaithersburg, and I took the 2-hour drive on the metro for a long time. And I never complained. I loved to do it. I couldn't wait to see them. And they spent 2 weeks each in the summer with me every summer. And oh, please let me go on. I attended all their, I was there every holiday. I never missed a holiday, even Valentine's Day. And On New Year's of 2015, I called CPS because I was concerned about their safety. After I called, it was a legitimate call, and I was told by their mother, who was given the status of neglect, to leave and never come back. And that's the last time I saw them. And she appealed it because she worked for DSS in St. Mary's County in the next county. And she appealed it, of course, because she wanted to keep her job. And when she appealed it, the CPS attorney asked me if I would be interested in dropping it because everything was okay and they were safe. And I said, and she said there was a safe plan in place. And I said, yes, I would drop it, please, if they would have some kind of if I could have some kind of communication with the children. So they dropped it. And I was able to give gifts and cards, and then they stopped it, and my daughter was able to see them. But now she's banned my daughter, too. And my daughter isn't able to have children, so that's all we have. And so now I wonder if I should even have called. But anyway, that's my testimony, and I'm hoping that maybe with this law, it'll help my case. And that's all I have. I'm sorry.
I will. Yes. My name is Karen Copeland, and I am the proud grandmother of a beautiful, loving 6-year-old named Sanaya Rose Gaston Copeland. Her dad was incarcerated when she was born and has been in and out of the jail system ever since. Sanaya lived with me Sanaya lives with her mom, Cassandra, half-sister Aubrey, and mom's boyfriend. When Sanaya was 1 month old, up until she was nearly 4, she stayed with me for about 4 to 5 days each week. She started preschool, and from that point on, her stay with me was on weekends and holidays. The blizzard, January 2016, both Sanaya and Aubrey, her half-sister, stayed with me that week due to school closure and because their mom, who's a nurse, had to work. Both girls opened up about mommy's boyfriend, entertaining his friends and drinking before them, and raising his voice, yelling at them, telling them to go to their room while his buddies were around and they were partying. They didn't want to tell mommy because mommy would be upset and get mad at them. When I finally brought it to the mom's attention, she accused me of brainwashing the girls and making such stories up. She informed me, the only way you will see Sanaya, which is my biological granddaughter, the only way you will see or visit Sanaya is when you do it at school, because I would volunteer in the school system of the girls, thus ending our weekend visit. Last year I volunteered primarily in Sanaya's kindergarten class 1 to 2 days a week. I live in Montgomery County. They live in Clinton, Maryland. I would drive an hour one way to get to the school. Sanaya was a little behind in her academics, and I would work with her separately in class and on weekends at my home. In no time, she would understand her lesson and complete them. Her teacher had even told me that her lessons, her schoolwork was not being reinforced at home, and that was the reason she was behind. I made learning fun. We did things. At my home, Sanaya felt safe, loved, and protected. There was also an instance, Cassandra allowed Sanaya to stay with her dad. He rented a suite at the Spring Hill Suites Marriott in Gaithersburg, Maryland. After putting her to bed, he called an escort service. Early in the morning, the police came banging on the door. They raided the room. There had been a man shot and killed in Frederick, Maryland at a nightclub, and some witnesses gave the description of my son's car. They found blood on the driver's window, Percocet, and over $900 in my son's book bag that was there in the car. He claimed they belonged to a friend. I put a lien on my house to get him out until his hearing. My son has no job. His job is selling illicit drugs. He has no permanent address. He stays here, there, and everywhere. Whoever will let him come in and sleep on the floor, on the sofa, whatever. And he takes my granddaughter, who he gets on weekends, with him.
Good afternoon. I'm Rebecca Robbins, and I'm here on behalf of my grandson, Elliot. His father, my son, Colin, was a heroin addict. On January 5th, 2015, I can do this. I called down the steps to Colin, who had recently moved back home. I'm sorry? Okay, I can do this. The problem is I can't see my grandson. I had a relationship with him. My son killed himself. I found him hanging in the basement. And I had a relationship with Elliot prior to Colin's death and after. And last February, his mother, Amy, made it clear that I was no longer welcome. And if I may say this, I just simply want to be a grandmother. I want to sit and read to him. I want to take him for ice cream and to the park and to the museums. I hope those of you who have grandchildren are able to do. I believe that Elliot and I deserve this type of loving relationship. African American males were granted the right to vote in 1869, women the right in 1920. In 1965, the Civil Rights Act was passed. In 2015, gays were granted the right to legal marriage. As a grandparent, I have not been given any rights. I am pleased to see that this bill has been sponsored by both parties, but the only party I want to attend is my grandson's birthday party. Thank you.
My name is Bernice Lawson. I'm here on behalf of my deceased daughter, Kim Lawson, who died December 30th, 2014. She was admitted to MedStar Hospital for a routine induced labor. In the evening, there was a C-section, emergency C-section that was performed. She was rushed through to have the baby, and she died twice. And the father, named in my document here, was present. Later, the caseworker came into the room and wanted to know where the child was going since the mother had died. I said, well, of course she's going home with me. I have a nursery set up for her, and we're waiting for her arrival. And she's here, and she's going home with me. And so the caseworker, the father, and I had a discussion, and he was in agreement. But no, that wasn't so. 7 days later, he returned. The child was released to him. No Child Protective Services got involved. No DNA got involved. Was done because I didn't know him. Only heard his name. Seen him 3 times. The 3rd time was the day my daughter was buried. He came to the funeral with the child, and then he assured me and my Kim's father that he would bring Kimberly to us so that we could visit. It happened the day of the funeral, which was January 14. He brought Kimberly to the funeral. A few days later, when Kim's father returned to Florida, He brought Kimberly so that he could see her. On the 14th of April 2015, he came to the home because I asked him to come because I was in the process of becoming the personal rep for my daughter's estate. He did come. He brought Kimberly with him. I saw her briefly, maybe 15 minutes, and he was gone. I have not seen my grandchild since that time. April 14, 2015, and he lives in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I live in Frederick. How cold is that? My daughter died. He takes the baby. So I lost 2 people. 2. You have my written statement.
Hi, my name is Deborah Kalogi, and I'm here for support to try to get visitation rights with my son, CJ. He was born under the name of Charles James Reedy, but his mother changed his name, and his father didn't even show up for that. CJ is my son's child and his girlfriend of almost 8 years. She put up with his domestic abuse the whole time they were together. She was the one worked. She was the one paid all the bills. She was the one that did everything, and he didn't do anything. But she was in that domestic violent woman's mode where she just tolerated it because she didn't think she would find anybody else to love her. So they decided to have a child to think it was going to make their relationship better. When she had the child, she finally got strong enough and left him after a year. The first year, I was in my grandson's life. Then, after his first year birthday, for 3 months, she left him, moved back with her mother. For 3 months, I tried to contact her, and she would mostly ignore my calls, ignore my texts. Then finally, she cut me off completely with every and any kind of communication between me, my family, and any loved ones. So I looked into trying to find out if I had any rights. I had several lawyers tell me, no, you have no rights. But you know what? I filed for visitation rights for my grandson, knowing that I probably was going to fail. And I guess you all know the answer is I failed. But my thing is at least I tried.
Yeah.
At least I have documentation showing that I want to be in my grandson's life. At least it wasn't me. She believes that if she can erase my son's whole entire family, that it will all go away. Every holiday, I send a card to the house. Every birthday, I send a card. Every Christmas, I buy a holiday ornament saying grandson with the year on it because I have intentions of seeing him one day, whether if I have to wait till he's an adult. But I want to know him to know that it wasn't my choice. Any of you that are grandparents, I hope you get to be in their lives. I have step grandchildren that get to call me granny, and I love them just like they're my own. And they have real grandparents, and those real grandparents choose not to be in their lives. I don't have a choice. The law says what I get to do and what I don't to do. And you know what? If it wasn't for me, there would be no CJ. Because if I didn't have a son, my son would never have been the father to my grandson. So without me, CJ would never even have been here. So why can't I have rights to be in his life?
Amen.
Thank you.
Well,
Not testify.
yeah.
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
Here, you can sit there. Oh.
The lady on the right here, the second lady.
Me, yes.
You testified about, have you taken any action to bring your Was it your son or your daughter-in-law to court?
Yes, I
son-
did file for petition for visitation, and I don't know if she's been served yet.
So you have filed an action in court saying, hey, I want visitation, right? And she's been
Yes.
served, but the case hadn't come on to court. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if she's been served, but it will go to court, yes.
Okay. And ma'am, have you been in the courthouse with respect?
I have, yeah.
No, not you, on the next, yes, yes. Yes, ma'am, did you file any cases in court?
Yes, I have.
And
I'm glad you asked that question.
With respect to visitation rights?
Yes, I have.
And what did the court do with that?
At the present time, it's pending December 16. December 16, 2016, I appeared in court after almost 2 years trying to get the father there. We appeared in court, and the father stated that he will allow me to have visitation with my granddaughter, but that has not happened. I'm still waiting for the phone call. I'm waiting for a text message, Still waiting.
So he's actually in contempt of that court order.
Yes, he is.
Did you all reach an agreement and tell the judge on the record what you were going to do?
I have a signed document. I have a signed
So you have
document from the
visitation
court.
rights pursuant to a signed document?
Yes, signed, sealed by the judge.
All
His
right.
signature, his lawyer, my lawyer, the judge.
Thank you.
And I have not had an opportunity. I'm still waiting.
Let's see. All right. Ma'am, you. Yes, ma'am. Have you taken any action?
I went to, first the CPS, went to CPS immediately after it happened, and she told me to wait a while so that the judge, because, their mom worked for DSS in St. Mary's County. So I went to Calvert County where the complaint was, and she said to wait until a little while so that the judge wouldn't think it was just, a tiff, or, or she'd get over it so she would get over it and let me see the kids. So I waited till February. It was in New Year's Eve, so I waited till February, and I'm on disability, so I don't have a lot of money. So I went to Calvert County, and when I went to they have on Wednesdays, you can go in and see an attorney. So I went in there, I was the first person to see, was first come, first serve. So I went in and I sat down, and the lady said that she couldn't speak to me because they couldn't talk to me because of they knew the people at DSS in St. Mary's County, so they couldn't help me. So they told me to go to my own county in Montgomery County. So I went to Montgomery County, and they said that I had to take it up with St. Mary's County. So I ended up with pamphlets and hotlines and stuff like that, and then I can't get anybody to help me because they say grandparents' rights, they don't have rights. And then I went to a lady on the Eastern Shore, and I decided that I was going to try to get some money up through my family. And basically, I sat down with that lady for a very long time, and she told me I could use all the money I wanted to and pay whatever I wanted to, but she said basically it came down to whether the judge had lunch or not.
You're in the situation where they changed the kid's name?
That's me.
So you were working, trying to get into the courthouse to get your case
No, I
heard.
already
Not
went.
you, her.
Oh, her.
Is that right? You're trying to get into court to get your case heard for visitation or not?
I haven't yet, no.
And you, ma'am, tell me about your case and the change of name. I kind of got a little lost on that. How did it change?
Well, my son's name right now is Christopher James Harden. He was born Charles James Reedy. So that way they can still keep the CJ because that's what they refer to him to. I filed paperwork for visitation rights. At the same time, the mother decided to file her paperwork to get full custody of him. So the courts put my case...
Custody against your son?
No, I filed visitation rights for myself Yeah, oh yes, she filed visitation, yes, she filed rights to have full custody of him against my son. My son I haven't seen in almost 2 years. He chooses to lead the life that he does, which is not a good life. He doesn't do what he's supposed to do in life. He has warrants out for his arrest, and I'm a person that will not tolerate that. His girlfriend tolerated that for the 8 years they were together. And that's the only way I had communication with them when they were together, is because of her. So she filed for full custody of CJ at the same time. So the courts decided to put the two cases together. So they ordered the mother, the father, and me. I had to go to parenting classes. I was supposed to go for drug testing because the two of them were supposed to go for drug testing, and go for some other kind of counseling. All because she filed the same time and the courts decided to put it together. So my son did not do anything the courts required him to do. He never showed up anymore for any of the court hearings. He never did nothing. When then she filed and to have his name changed, he never even showed up for that. But I found out about it and I showed up because I wanted her to know I'm not going away. I'm going to keep fighting and fighting until I can be in my grandson's life. He was a year old.
Have you filed for custody yourself? Custody, visitation rights?
Yes.
Okay. And so the judge has that case pending, the two are together?
No, it's not pending. I've already been and they've denied it. It was strictly up to the mother.
So in your case, the judge has denied you the visitation rights?
Right, because the mother said no.
Because the mother said no.
No other reasons why, just because she said no. And I believe it's all just because it's vindictive revenge, because anytime she needed something for CJ, I was in his life for the first year. She needed anything for him, I was right there to help her and support her. I would not support my son because he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do in life, but I would support her. I was always on her side. So now she's erased everybody that has anything to do with my son's side of the family, won't communicate with any of us. My grandson was a year old the last time I saw him. I've never been able to see him walk. I've never heard him talk. He will be 4 in June.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Now, ma'am, have you been in court on your case?
I have attempted. Each time I go, I'm told that I have no case. I have no case.
You have a court date at all? Have you?
I have, well, let me say, I've gone as far as to see a judge, and each time I go to see go to the judge to present my case, I'm told that it's not going to stand. I don't have enough.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now let's hear from the other witness.
My name is Shannon Greb, and I am a grandmother. I became a grandmother June 1st of 2015 to Chandler, which is my grandson. My story is a little bit different than theirs. I actually currently have custody of my grandson. I've had custody of Chandler since December 16th of 2015. I originally had Chandler. My daughter was in a domestic violence situation, beaten from head to toe. How Chandler survived in utero is amazing. He's a trooper. But I tried to save her several times. She always went back. Chandler was born. He was 3 days old. Dad yanked him out of her arms, broke Chandler's collarbone. Mom came to stay with me and went back with the baby. So I filed a restraining order on behalf of Chandler on my own. I started doing my own research. I was also met with a lot of, you're a grandparent, grandparents have no rights in Maryland, but I still went forward, was granted the restraining order, got Chandler. 2 weeks later was supposed to be our court hearing. I was told that I needed to transfer it to circuit court and file for emergency custody, which I did. At that point, I again received custody of Chandler, pending a pendente litem hearing. Went back to the pendente litem hearing the end of that July, and was told by one of our circuit court judges here in Annapolis that I basically had no rights, even though this child was being abused, my daughter was being abused, and the father had several convictions that he was waiting for trials for, and had to give Chandler back. I had a wonderful attorney here in Annapolis that helped me through all of this. But I had to sit there and wait patiently, and I was not awarded any visitation, even though I had Chandler for the first 2 months. November of 2015, the domestic violence, of course, kept on going on. Chandler was thrown across a room. Dad was arrested. CPS was called. A safety plan was put into place, and my daughter didn't follow it. She violated it. So I filed for emergency custody, yet again. And ever since I've been awarded custody of Chandler. But it is a struggle. And as a granddaughter who lived with her grandparents and her mother for the first 8 years of her life, I know how important grandparents are. And as a widow of a now 13-year-old who was 9 months, I made sure that his grandparents, my husband's parents, are in his life as well. It's important to have us in their lives, but we're having to jump through hoops to see our grandkids or to save our grandkids. And a lot of us are in very bad situations with our kids. And with the current heroin and opioid emergency issues, I'm seeing more and more grandparents are needing to be involved. So it's becoming more crucial that we have rights in the state of Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jawan Blocker, and I am the student member to the Prince George's County Public School Board. But I'm actually going to be here today speaking as an individual. I'll be speaking as a student, and of course, the grandchild of some great grandparents. I would just say, in short, I just find it very disappointing to know that grandparents are not afforded the opportunity or in law have visitation rights for their grandchildren. What I will say is that my grandparents, in my case, have been extremely important. And what I will say is, especially now in this day and age, it is extremely important that our children are exposed and have a strong, sound support system. And again, in my case, I'm very blessed to have grandparents that are extremely supportive and have been very important in my life. And, you know, have really helped groom me and raise me to the point at which I could be speaking before you all today. So again, I want this for every student, you know, in the state of Maryland. And again, our children, we need strong support systems. And aside from parents, we need our grandparents because, again, they really make positive impacts on our lives. So, again, I like to conclude with that.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chair, Committee. My name is David W. Smith, Sr. I'm the co-founder of the Children's Rights Fund, and I advocate for children and I advocate for parents, and, of course, grandparents are parents. I work as a coordinator and liaison in our school system with parents and grandparents with parent involvement and keeping them involved. And a lot of times when the parents are working, the grandparents are involved because, you know, they either retired or are at home. And so they really do add that plus to the child development and the academics. And, you know, and also, you know, listening to these grandparents today, it just breaks my heart because, you know, I still have my grandmother who is 92 years old, and I'm blessed to have her. But, you know, a lot of times when parents are going through issues and separation and custody and things like that, the grandparent plays a safe haven, you know, for the child to help minimize some of that discomfort and what's going on. And you know, and the Pew report just released a couple facts about grandparents and how important they are. And I'm just going to read one of them. And it says, more grandparents are living with a grandchild. About 7 million grandparents live with a grandchild in 2013. up from 5.8 million grandparents who did in 2000. So according to the Census Bureau and the Pew Report, among these grandparents, a significant share of 38% also serve as their grandchildren's primary caretaker. You know, so a lot of times they're caring for these children while the parents may not be there, or the parents might be there. And so when the parents are splitting and going through things, they're building that structure, and then now the parent decides, oh, I want to take the child away, and then they're stuck trying to figure out, how can I see this, you know, grandson or granddaughter? And I know a couple of you here have grandchildren, and just put yourself in these grandparents' shoes that are behind me, and if you didn't have that access. And, you know, as I said, I advocate for parents and I advocate for kids, and you know, their voices are the ones you should be listening to, but, you know, I strongly support this bill, and you all also may know that I also strongly support a shared parenting, you know, keeping parents in the lives of their children, which would also extend to grandparents and extended family members. So I just really wish you would guys consider this bill, because we are now in a 21st century, and we got to figure out how we change some of our 21st century family laws to put that family structure back in place. So I appreciate your time, and as always, they save the best bills for last. So have a great evening.
Have you been to court?
Me, personally,
Okay,
several
for claim
times.
For child custody, first, no. You filed an action for custody at one time.
Yes, I've had custody.
Well, I mean, when you didn't get custody, you said, well, look, how about a little visitation right?
I originally had custody, and then at the pendente litem hearing, they gave custody back.
Okay, but at that
and I
time,
asked,
did they give you some visitation
no,
rights?
they gave me no visitation.
Did you make any pitch for, say, well, look, I know you're taking the kid away. How about letting me see him on
Absolutely, we did.
Well,
We absolutely did. I was denied because neither one of his parents wanted me in his life. At that point, my daughter was angry, and his father was an abuser. So they didn't, you know, he still had her under his control at that point. So he didn't want me to have any access. And for good reason. He was abusing his child as well. So I wasn't allowed to see Chandler except for, admittedly, Facebook stalking. I'm not going to lie. But I wasn't allowed to see Chandler for 4 months. And then I found...
Right. Now, are you seeing him now?
I have custody of him now.
Well, what the heck? You're all right then. You're in good shape.
Which is why my journey was very hard. And it's very hard because you have to jump through hoops.
I understand that your journey would be hard, and I'm sure financially it's a very tough burden and everything else.
Yeah,
No question about it, but the only thing we could do is put on the books. And on the books here it says that we have gone I was here for a lot of years, and we started out with very, very limited parents' rights, grandparents' rights. One of the parents had to be dead before you could come in and say, hey, look, my son's deceased, got killed in the war, and I'd like to be substituted, or I'd like to have visitation rights. That was the only way you could get it, and then we gradually increased it over the years to the point where now the book says if it's in the best interest of the child, you can have visitation rights.
But can I say, like, how is it not in the best interest of the child if one of the parents has passed away? The one way that my son gets to know about his father is through his grandparents.
Your son doesn't have to be passed away. I mean, you have a right as a grandparent, if it's in the best interest of the child, to have visitation.
Right, and they're all being denied. So, and that's the problem. We don't have rights.
Can I respond to that? Can I respond to that?
Yes,
because
sure.
I am the one who's already went to court. The best interest of the child was solely left up to the mother. She did not have to prove no wrongdoing of me. She didn't have to do anything but say no. The judge even looked at her and said, she seems like such a reasonable person. She was there with a lawyer. Why don't you and your lawyer sit down with her? She looks like she has nothing but best interest of the child. She wants to be a part of his life. She says no. And that's the end of it. She doesn't have to prove anything wrong. She doesn't have to prove that I didn't do anything to her. She doesn't have to do anything but say no.
How about you? Have you?
And you know, even
You have
working in the schools, even working in the schools, if the grandparents want to be involved, they can be involved. But if a parent says, I don't want you involved, then they cannot be involved. So they have to get the agreement of the parent, so, it's just, there's no rights for grandparents, just like there's minimal rights when it comes to sometimes with the parents under the best interest standards,
Mr. Chairman, I do have to beg to differ with you. I think the law, certainly before Conover versus Conover, said that basically the only way a third party, whether it was grandparent, aunt, anyone else, could get custody or visitation, because there was another case that said basically visitation is just a subset of custody, is you had to either prove that the parent was unfit or you had to prove exceptional circumstances. Now, Conover versus Conover came out last summer, and it sets forth 3 points, and I was trying to look it up here and refresh my memory of the 3 points. One of the 3 points, and I suggest everyone consult counsel if they wish to go anywhere with this. One of the points was, has the child ever been placed voluntarily in the care of the third party? I think that's the most significant one, and then I think the other ones have to do is in the sort of best interest. And you can Google it, Conover versus Conover. It says the 3 points. Now, it's the first case that's come out in a long way that's from our Court of Appeals that has started to trend another direction. I wouldn't be amazed if there's a few more coming. But that's my view, just as a humble attorney from Crofton, that where I think the law was before Conover and where I think the law is now. I think Conover right now is the seminal case regarding third party, or as it was referred to in the case as de facto parent.
And we actually cited that case in my case. And that was a big factor, which is the de facto and just making sure it was in the best interest of the child. That's how we won, was in the best interest of the child, because he was being abused and thrown around, and my daughter was not protecting him and allowing him to be placed in that. And the other thing is CPS has their hands tied. They have too many cases, and they tell you they have their hands tied. A lot of frivolous cases out of vindictiveness from other people, but the ones that really matter, they're being pulled away from, and they tell you their hands are tied on everything right now. So they do these safety plans hoping that they don't get broken, and the only way that they know if they're broken is if someone tells them, which was, in this case, I was able to tell them that he was being left alone with his father, and drugs were around him and everything was going on. So it's just, the law needs to be more clearly stated where grandparents can have rights, especially in Rebecca's situation where her son passed away. She should be able to see her grandson and give him his history of his father, no matter what. And we've I built a page based off of this, which is called Maryland Grandparents Fighting for Rights, which is how most of us met and started fighting together, because this is just it. You jump through hoops, and unless you've been through it and through the system here in Anne Arundel County, I had to jump through 50,000 hoops and pay thousands of dollars in an attorney. So it's not easy, and if you have limited resources, somebody said they had to pay $5,000 up front, which is normal, but it's a lot for grandparents with limited resources. My situation's a little bit different, but in most cases, they're denied. And these kids are losing out on the best things. I mean, my grandmother is 92 and still alive as well. My grandfather just passed away 6 years ago at 92. I was close to them. We lived with them the first 8 years of my life. They, were my everything. They're important. My mom's my everything too, but they're important.
I told my grandson that to always go to a helper if something was wrong, and he went to a helper. And the helper came, and that's what happened, and he told what was going on. And so when I, called the CPS, and she got the CPS status, that's why I never got to see him again. And I would think that would be unusual circumstances, but that wasn't counted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.